Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm happy to say I'm in my hometown of Ojai, California, and it's September, which for most of California is wine grape harvesting month. And I'm happy to be here with you. Cheers, Micah.
Cheers.
With Micah Gustafsson, and we are at Majestic Oak Winery, and we're sitting in front of this beautiful tree, which
Yeah.
is an oak tree, and that's how the winery got its name. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm not positive how old the tree is. It was here when my family moved here in the mid 60s. I suspect it's close to 100 years old. And it's just such a beautiful shape, tree right in the middle of the vineyard. We felt that the name reflected, the property and the tree, so we used it.
As soon as I saw the tree, I knew that that's where you got the name Majestic Oak. It is majestic and it's gorgeous. So you grew up on this property. Your grandfather was the first to come to this.
That's true. My mother and her family moved here from Oxnard, I want to say in the mid 60s, 64, 65. So my family's more or less been on this property for, 40 something years now?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so your mom moved here, she said, when she was, since she was 14.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you were born here.
I was born in Ojai, not far from here, and my parents built a house on the property here when I was 1.
Okay, so you are tied to this land.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. I hope that you all can see. We'll take some pictures for you as well. And how did you get started in the wine business?
Well, what is now vineyard was all horse pasture originally. It was kind of more of a ranch growing up, and we hadn't had horses in about 15 years, and so it was just kind of sitting here with nothing going on. And one day, my father came to me and said, what would you think about growing grapes? We've got some people, some friends in town that are growing grapes, and we could kind of see that kind of thing moving south from Santa Ynez and Santa Barbara. And so this was about 5 or 6 years ago, so we decided to just kind of give it a roll.
So how much of your land is dedicated to the vines, to the vineyard?
It's not a very big property. We have about just shy of 3 acres here, and we've devoted just about an acre to the grapes.
Okay, an acre of grapes. And what varietals are you growing?
We have a Sauvignon Blanc,
which we are drinking right now, which is delicious.
Thank you very much. And we have a Syrah as well. We have been fiddling with making a rosé out of the Syrah as well. So that's something we may offer eventually, but that's kind of, like I said, we're just still playing with that.
So Ojai, I know that there are a few other wineries here. Is Ojai specialty Sauvignon Blanc and Syrah, or?
Good question. When we started researching and reading and talking to other vintners in Ojai about 5 or 6 years ago, really the only thing anybody was growing here was Syrah.
Okay.
Everybody was saying Syrah is what to grow. Syrah is the only thing that will grow. And
because if you didn't know, Ojai is very hot.
Yes, it is. And so we did a little bit of research and found that people as north as Santa Ynez were growing Sauvignon Blanc. And so everybody says it's hot enough for Sauvignon Blanc, but it doesn't get cold enough for Sauvignon Blanc. And that might be true for certain parts of the valley. But I know this property really well, and I said, no, I know it gets cold enough here because I know this property and it's kind of low-lying and the cold settles. We'll get frost here and even freeze here at times of the year when the rest of the valley won't.
Okay.
And I knew that was probably enough to make it work.
Okay.
So it was an experiment, but it's doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, September 22nd was a few days ago, so we're well into, we're right into autumn.
Yes.
And you just harvested your grapes a few weeks ago. What was that like? Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to harvest and the crush, which is so exciting for most people?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work as well. The day starts really early, usually at about, I think I was up at 4 a.m. And the goal is to get the grapes off the vine and keep them as cool as possible. So you start basically as soon as you can see picking, and that way you can keep the temperature cooler.
So is that the goal, is to pick the grape when they're still cool?
Well, what it does is as the grape heats up, it wants to, believe it or not, go into fermentation rather quickly. So the moment it gets to a certain temperature, the higher and the higher the temperature it gets, the quicker that process happens.
Okay.
So the goal is to kind of keep it cool and keep it almost kind of sedated in a weird way, until you can do certain things to it, do some testing to it, measure the pH, the TA, and the sugar in the grape, and then make adjustments if you need to on that. And then eventually the next day is when you inoculate it with a yeast, a strain that we've chosen, and then that begins the fermentation stage.
Okay. So how many days was your harvesting time?
It took a day for the Sauvignon Blanc and a day for the Syrah.
And then your crush time is?
With both of them, they're similar but different processes. With the Syrah, you destem and crush in one day, and with the Sauvignon Blanc, you actually go a little further. You destem, you crush, and very often times you even press in the same day as well. It doesn't sit on the skins for weeks like a Syrah does. It's a very quick process, that you're looking for the crispness and not the heavy tannins and things like that you'll get by leaving it on the skins and on the seeds and things like that.
Okay. What I love about this winery is that it's very grassroots. It's local, it's small, it's charming, it's quaint. And did you have to take your shoes off to do the crush? Because I noticed you don't have a lot of equipment like a lot of the big wineries have. You're doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, this is true. Most everything we do is all by hand. We really don't have any tools, mechanical tools to speak of. And yes, we let the women and the girls get in the grapes. Us boys and our hobbit feet, we don't allow them in there. Generally.
Okay. Well, it's next year. I hope you invite me, because I saw some pictures online, and they looked like they were having fun, and it looks like it's a very beautiful dance to watch these women when they're doing the crush. So what can you tell me about this year as far as the weather goes in Ojai? Was it a good wine year? We didn't have a lot of rain over the winter. It was a semi-hot summer. What can you tell me about whether that was good or bad for your grapes this year?
It's a good question too. This year was actually good. It yielded a good crop, and there's some things that can happen that can be detrimental to crops. And some of those things are like a late rain. Let's just say you've gone all year, and of course we water the grapes, and we get them to a point where they're getting close to being harvested. If you get downpours or drenching rains, what it will do is it will dilute that grape, and take kind of all your hard work away in kind of a weird way.
Take the flavor away.
That's right. It takes the flavor and literally dilutes it with too much water. So thankfully,
you didn't have that happen.
Thankfully, we did not have something like that happen this year, which is good. As far as, we have this thing called what we call the triangle. And what the triangle is when you decide to pick the grape, you're looking for 3 points of a triangle. And each of those points have some like area you'd like the numbers to be. One point of the triangle is the sugar content of the grape. The sugar is what transfers into alcohol. So you need that to be at a specific point. The other leg of that triangle is the pH. How bright, how acidic the wine is. The other point of that triangle is what's called TA, which is titratable acidity or tartaric acid, depending on who you ask. It measures the same thing. So when you get a year when all 3 points of the triangle are in their optimum position at harvest time, you end up with typically a very good wine. Some years you only get 2 legs of the triangle, and you have to fudge the third by either maybe adding sugar if it's deficient, or maybe adding citric acid if it's not bright enough, or if it's low in acidity. So
A few of the vintners that I know pride themselves on making their wine not sugar forward, but
Sure.
acid forward. They think that that's the true, where the true flavor comes from. A lot of California wines are high in sugar
Yeah.
and high in alcohol
Yeah.
and low in acid.
Yeah.
So where do you fall in between the sugar and the acid?
We have yet to ever add sugar to any of our Syrah. We added a little bit once to a rosé we were just experimenting with, but as of yet we've never added sugar into any of our wines. And naturally, that's actually frowned upon in France. I think there's even laws against it. And there's a name for it, and I think it's called like capitalization or something like that. That's what they call that. But we've yet to do that. I am really of the opinion that I try to let each year, or we do as a family, we make decisions, and we try to let the grape speak for itself, and we try not to push it into any one direction more than we feel like we should.
Okay.
I feel like
So you're letting the grapes do what they do best. and just
that's right. And so maybe one year that you end up with a Syrah that's only got 11.5 or 12% in alcohol. That just happens to be how that wine was that year. And
Right.
it tells you a lot about the year, and each year is going to be a little different. I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you see the quail behind us?
No, there's quail. There's wildlife all around us, so that's beautiful. Now, if one of our readers or listeners wanted to find your wine,
Yeah.
is it out in Ojai yet, or is it still a very boutique wine that you're selling only from here during some special events and so on?
Yeah. I guess legally I can't sell it yet.
Okay.
We are going through the licensing and bonding process. But shortly we will be through with that. It's just you have to let the government know what you're doing, and they want their cut.
All their permit process and regulations.
Yes, that's right. So we're going through that process currently. So if I was to sell it, I would be bootlegging, so I'm not selling my wine.
Okay, but we are
but
lucky. It is
we-
5 o'clock, so we are able
We
to.
are enjoying it.
We are enjoying it. And if someone wanted to learn more about the winery, and I know that you have special events here,
Yes.
you have weddings and
Yes.
private parties. It is absolutely gorgeous here. It's a beautiful place to
Thank
have
you.
a wedding. There's beautiful views and vistas. So where could they find out more information?
The best place would probably be on Facebook.
Okay.
We have facebook.com/Majestic Oak Winery or Vineyard.
So if they put in Majestic
They'll find it.
Oak Winery on Facebook, you'll be able to find it. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us?
No.
Drink more wine, maybe?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Drink more wine. Thank you, Micah. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you to my readers and listeners, and we'll see you in October. Thanks. Cheers.
Skip a life completely